Hi, welcome to the first part of this week's edition where again John, Dave and myself are going to look back over Leinster's emphatic victory against Munster and Connacht's great win against Ulster and all of the other games. So boys, 25-14 against Munster in the Aviva. Pretty good result.
It was. It was a good result. Even more importantly, it was a good performance. I'm not going to claim it was a classic game, but it was a watchable game. It was an entertaining game.
It never is.
No, it never is. But to a certain extent, in a larger Irish rugby picture, it might have been a bit disappointing. Munster were quite poor.
Yeah.
Leinster didn't have to do a whole lot to beat them.
No, Munster looked like that was all they have, and Leinster looked like they were in second gear. I was disappointed not to get the bonus point, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah.
Given how poor they were,
and we had 10 minutes to get it, to go first.
It's just, I was happy with the win. All in all, I would have taken that win before the game without a shadow of a doubt. And it's always good to beat them and all that, but they just didn't look like they had a clue or had it. That's a bit harsh, but they didn't look like they had a way to break through us. They couldn't get through us. They couldn't chip over us. They couldn't
get round us.
They seemed to have no answer. Like they had CJ Stander making yards. He was kind of taken out of it by, I think he was targeted by Jordy Murphy. But he still played very well, still made yards, but he wasn't let get ahead of steam up in the way that he has been by other teams.
We just let them run at us and just
but
tackle.
I was about to say, there were parts of the game where it looked like we were just practicing our tackling, and we seemed to get fairly good at it. And there was the creativity there with Sexton, Henshaw and Ringrose was great to watch.
Yeah, that partnership really looked like it'd been playing together for years.
And Henshaw is just playing his first game of rugby this season. Like that's since the Pro 12 final. That is incredible to be at that. Okay, he wasn't like, I'm not trying to big him up too much. I mean, he wasn't perfect, right? But
he's still very, very good. Yeah.
Considering it was his first game, he was awesome.
In every aspect.
Defense,
like he was in defence. The amount of tackles he put in, held up guys.
Yeah.
Ran at fellas, he carried really well, and then of course the chip that he put through for Gibson Price's try.
His all-round game was excellent. It really was. It was genuinely excellent. But then we kind of make the joke about it, but we didn't have to work too. We've always said that sometimes in this game you don't want to give away too much, whether by design or by fluke. We didn't actually have to give away too much to win it.
I don't think it was designed. I don't think we were holding back moves, right? Like Joe Schmidt in the Joe Schmidt days.
No. The point I'm making is we didn't actually have to do that. Yeah.
So I'm feeling pretty good about Leinster, I have to say, and the best I've been feeling since, dare I say it, 2013 when Joe Schmidt left.
Interesting comments from Tyke Furlong actually after the match. He was just talking. He was really bigging up Stuart Lancaster on the role he's had. Particularly, he said the defence, and they feel that they've really noticed an improvement in the defence, which is surprising because it was one of our better parts of our game last season. But he said that he has noticed an improvement since Lancaster's.
First of all, I don't actually think it was one of the better parts of our game last season, but that's neither here nor there.
New broom sweeps clean.
I think you can see. We watched the first game of the season against Treviso. It was a win. We weren't overly impressed. It was a good performance against Glasgow, but we came away with nothing. But since then, you can actually see the
progression.
There's a progression. There's kind of a snap and an aggressiveness. And
well, don't forget, Lancaster wasn't involved in the first match.
That's what I'm saying. That's the point I'm making.
And he'd only come on the Monday before the Glasgow.
That's what I'm saying. You can actually see the difference. You can see before Lancaster and post Lancaster's arrival. You can see a difference even in the way system that's been used. It's a much more aggressive system.
Oh yeah. And as our friend said the other week when he was on, it's a great system to play in.
Yeah.
It's very exciting for the players who are in that, and they're kind of nearly give the opposition the ball and say, "Come on," which we seem to do at points during that game. We seem to just give them the ball and go, "Right, lads, what have you got?"
They actually had more possession. I know it was only marginally more, but it was 53%.
Well, that's a pattern that's been going back to playing Munster for a long time now. There's always been an element of give Munster as much ball as they like, as long as it's slow ball. Now we're not even worried about the speed of the ball. I mean, you've got a situation where Leinster are doing it's a very New Zealand thing. They're just completely ignoring a lot of rucks. They're not even getting involved in them.
But you just
That's a general thing in rugby, I
Yeah.
think, though.
But Munster
the
just
last few
looked
years.
very poor, didn't they? They looked a blunt instrument, really.
They did.
Like they
Sadly.
they have someone like CJ who just trucks it up, and O'Mahony probably when he gets back fit, and after that, Earl's playing at the centre. He's wasted
Yeah, there's
there.
a certain amount of square pegs and round holes, round pegs and square holes, square pegs and round holes with the Munster
Whichever.
selection. Earl's at centre just doesn't work. It hasn't worked. It hasn't worked for a long time. He's a really good player and he makes a good fist of it because he's such a good player, but he's not a centre. And if he's coming up against two guys who really are centres, he's in trouble.
Hmm. Especially when they're in decent form. Well, we need a strong Munster, and I kind of fear for them going to, with missing two loose head props, it looks like going to Racing next week. It's not what Irish rugby needs, is them going over and getting battered. On the other hand,
I still don't think they'll get battered.
if they can hold them for 60 minutes, they'll probably come back heroes.
It's not too often in
difference in the squads.
It's not too often in the history of professional rugby that I can remember a Munster team getting battered. I mean, they do have they may be good, they may be bad, but they still have a lot of pride. So I don't know if they'll get battered. But should we talk about the European stuff in part two? But there were opportunities there where the beating could have been a lot worse for them. There was obviously the one
knocking on the line.
Ringrose.
Ringrose
knocking on the line. The
Seawas break down
when
the
the
wing.
Seawas gets break. I was watching that again, and actually Murray Kinsella has an excellent piece on it in the 42. But if Johnny Sexton holds that ball a beat more, Zebo isn't making that tackle.
Yeah,
because if you
true,
watch it,
notice that.
Johnny doesn't quite tempt him
commit
into
the man,
fully
yeah.
transferring his weight.
Yeah.
If he fully transfers his weight, he takes one more step, he's gone. It's a try.
Yeah.
So that you can be sure that's come up in the video station already for Johnny.
Or if Isa was about 2 or 3 years younger,
Yeah.
he would have made the corner. A lot of Munster fans saying that he was in touch before he threw the ball back, and that it should have been their throw and not ours. And
Yeah,
we
it's
scored
possible,
from
but
it,
it's hard to know what the referee was
Anyway.
doing with that.
Also, the pass that Rob Carney gave to Nasiwa looked a good bit
Yeah,
forward.
well, it did look a bit forward.
The ball was forward. I don't know if the pass was forward. You always have to make the differentiation. You have to look at the hands.
It looked
Yeah.
very forward
But
to me.
on the other hand, the try that they scored, which I think I said to you at the time, was knocked us off the top of the league. We were actually on top of the league before Munster scored that last try on points difference to Ulster. Not that it matters a damn at this stage of the season, but it's a nice thing to go into a break on top of the league. That try came after a Munster knock-on. They got, I think, a penalty.
Yeah.
Just after they knocked the ball out of a ruck, and I can't remember what the penalty was for, but they kicked that down the pitch and scored that.
But
try.
even the try that they did score, which is a perfectly legitimate try, the where they mauled it over, that was our own fault. Devin Toner got isolated and turned over in midfield. Penalty was conceded. They kicked for the corner, and we know what happened. That was a mistake that Leinster made. That they coughed up the ball. They put Devin Toner into a situation he shouldn't have been put into, where he was isolated. So I mean, that's the thing. You've got to be. If Leinster were a bit more ruthless and slightly more precise, that could have
Would
been
have
a
had a
lot.
bonus point.
It could have been a lot worse for Munster.
Yeah, well, I'd say poor Al Ringer is kicking himself for
Oh,
missing that one.
On the day he retires,
A man
and he
of
has
his-
his big do in the mansion,
man of his caliber.
Imagine it.
in the mansion house at the Leinster ball when they're doing the whole "thanks for everything you've done" Ringer speech.
2038.
You know what video they're going to show? They're going to show that video. You know it's going to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everybody's going to go, oh, look at how young he looked. Oh, my God.
Oh,
He
look
wasn't
at his
even
little
bald.
face! Look at his little
He
face.
wasn't even bald or anything.
That was before he'd had the third arm grafted onto his chest.
Well, why don't we have a quick look at the tries and see who was first one?
Yeah. And in fairness, we gave Munster plenty of warning we were doing this because, duh. And it was we ran the exact same move twice.
Yeah. But you still have to do it.
But in fairness, look how small the amount of space is. It's 10 metres that they have to defend.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 steps, actually, in fairness, because he was a guy who
It looks so easy, though.
who I wouldn't necessarily have selected, but 2 steps from Luke McGrath make that try. Because that pulls their entire defence over onto him, and it increases.
Still, you should stay on your man.
Yeah, but you transfer your weight. You see a guy going, you transfer your weight, and before you know it, you can't
Shouldn't.
come back.
Come on, David.
Watch, look there.
Yeah. And very, very crisp
14
from
was
Johnny.
so poor.
Well, he's an inexperienced player, you know.
14 is sweetening. Yeah, he was cut out all right.
You see, if you watch it there on that angle, you can actually, he goes up and then he leans in. He takes a step inside because he sees Luke McGrath take that second step. That's him gone. Once he does that, he can't get his weight back. He can't make that tackle.
Yeah.
He actually does what Johnny was unable to make Zebo do in the previous move.
Yeah.
But
Well,
there
he,
was-
he is fond of a snipe as well, so they
was-
had to be.
There
Oh,
was,
yeah.
There was a few times I noticed that we actually lined up 3 backs behind each other,
Yeah.
like
like to
really
see
looking
that.
to move.
Yeah.
And Nasiwa was brought around from from his wing right around to the opposite side, in a move that had made quite a large amount of yards behind.
There
on
was
the
an
right side.
awful lot of freshness in the team, wasn't there?
A willingness to attack.
Yeah. It was just they looked like they wanted to try stuff.
Yep.
I mean, there was one moment where it looked maybe there might have been a 2-on-2 when we turned over a ball and Nisa kicked it clear, which in reality is actually the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But there was almost a sense of disappointment that we didn't have a cut from there, something might have
But
happened.
the one that you mentioned earlier, where Nasiwa was caught on the line by some great covering, actually, in fairness to Zebo. But like that was a willingness to run from our own 22.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You know, there was 3 men went off then. I think
Yeah.
it was Ringrose, Sexton, and Nasiwa then. But the 3 of them just went off on their own down the left hand side.
Well, I think what we saw in that game was the Johnny Sexton who left Leinster,
Yeah,
not the Johnny Sexton
correct.
who came back.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think we're
But like on all of the reports that you hear on the radio or podcast, they're all saying, you know, by journalists that might be a bit closer to him, are kind of saying his head's in the right place. He really is switched on. And I heard a lovely interview with him. He said he'd get more pleasure if Leinster did well this season than he would for the previous 3 Heineken Cups, because he feels that this team will be his team, whereas all the other teams were ones he kind of
Came
he
into.
joined into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we have a look at Issa's second one.
Amen to that, Johnny.
Good play here from Ringrose as well.
Oh,
I thought
that
he
was
was going to go.
beautiful.
I thought he was going to go all the way myself.
Yeah.
So I did.
There was, like, he's so elusive. You know,
If Blaendal, in fairness to him, if Blaendal hadn't got a hand on him and held on for dear life, he would have been through.
in, yeah.
So you have to give credit to Blaendal there.
it's kind of it looks a little bit like an old heavyweight boxer and Muhammad Ali.
Mm.
You know,
Munster got
Stumbling
very,
around the
I
place.
can't see Niember. What's his name? Niember. Been very happy with that because forward pass or no forward pass, that Munster defence was very, very narrow.
stand up like
I mean-
Kipper, mate.
2 passes,
Yeah.
cut them out completely.
A bit reminiscent of the one that they scored against us, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did manipulated the space.
There might have been an element of fatigue from ours, but not really for theirs.
No.
But they did look like even in the ruck and all, they did look to be stumbling about the place there. Like I know that's
It's just that hand there. That's the.
yeah.
Because if he doesn't.
Still, that's a super run. Isn't
Oh, it is. Yeah.
And the way he kept control of the ball there when he nearly lost it was pretty spectacular as well.
I thought Luke McGrath had a super game.
Yeah, I think he did. I thought he had a very good
A guy
game.
that, you know,
I wouldn't have
was
picked.
probably
I
on-
wouldn't have picked. Yeah.
and probably under an awful lot of pressure with
Good.
Gibson Park
Didn't work
coming
for Redden and Boss.
in. It did, yeah. But,
The only thing I'd say about him, and I say it about a lot of scrum halves, is the flapping the arms and looking at the ref. Every second you're looking at the ref is a second you could be either looking at the ball
Or looking at the opposition.
or looking at where the opposition are going or looking at where your backs are. It's just wasted brain cycles, and it just pisses
But, I mean,
me
he
off.
probably grew up watching Stringer. I mean,
I was about
he
to
probably
say,
did grow up watching Stringer
Stringer-
as a role model, and
Stringer did a lot.
he
of
did
it
a
as
lot of
well.
it. So you pick that stuff up. But I would say, I mean, the one thing I don't like, the one thing I'm not sure about is I'm not certain that he can manipulate the pace, the tempo of a game, the way that maybe other scrum halves can. With Sue, I thought he had played very well against Munster, but he did play in a very orthodox role.
I think that himself and Gibson Park are starting to develop a bit of a clash of styles
Yeah.
together, like Boss and Redden did,
Yeah.
and when we won all our Heineken Cups. That they're kind
Almost
of
like an
developing.
Irish and a Kiwi scrum half.
You never know.
we wonder then if we'd see similar kind of situation when we go to France, not in 2 weeks' time, if they're going to pick a really big back row like we did under Schmidt in the glory
They
years.
may do. They may do. Well, we'll get to
Yeah,
that in part
Schmidt,
two,
Schmidt
perhaps.
used to pick an awful lot. Going away to France, pick the heavy
Cart
artillery,
horses.
heavy artillery, and a scrum half.
Yeah,
who
used
could
to be
yeah,
generally the
facilitate
away
them.
one.
But
yeah.
if you look at the two scrum halves, like now they're not Redden and Boss. They don't have those two styles.
They don't have as distinctive a
They-
style.
Well,
a distinctive the way that Redden was the, if you like,
the speed
a
merchant.
speed merchant, whereas Boss was a
the
typical
defensive.
facilitator of forwards, if you like.
Yeah, exactly. So if you look at it from that point of view, perhaps Luke McGrath's a little bit more Boss, and Ivan is a little bit more Redden. He's very quick to the ruck like Redden.
Well, he was quick off the mark for this try. We'll have a look
He
at it
certainly
now.
was.
I'm very tempted to put this to the old Keystone Cops music,
Yes.
you know.
The
the
clowns, yeah.
Yeah.
Send in the clowns.
But this is a lovely play. A lovely little chip kick from Henshaw. Just spots a bit of space.
Look at the amount of green space that he kicked into.
Look at how hard the chase is.
Oh. When I was in the ground, I thought they were looking back to see that Henshaw touch it.
Yeah, so did I. And then
And they were actually looking to
See
see
was
that
there
the
a
Munster
grounding,
guy
yeah.
grounded.
But I mean, there's a couple of things. One, it's a very good chip, and two, the chase is really good.
Yep.
I mean, you had three guys
What's
up
that
there.
old adage?
Yeah. Oh yeah, kick
Kick is only as good as your chase.
Yeah. But you had three guys up there really hard on
Right
that kick.
on it, yeah.
yeah.
So actually, the hand they were looking for was his hand,
Yeah.
not Henshaw's hand.
To be honest, if that had gone the other way, I wouldn't have been utterly surprised.
Mhm. It was very touch and go
Yeah.
with his hand on the line
Or
and
not.
that whole lot. Yeah.
It was a cock up, wasn't it?
Oh, it was dreadful.
Well, it happens.
Depends what angle you look at it from.
It's
Yeah.
a hard one. Whatever touch he does get on it, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
Like
was
it's
on the
literally
line.
just
But
loses
what,
it
what,
before
what
the
touch he
line.
does get on it completely kills Blanda because it takes the ball away from him.
Yeah.
If he doesn't touch that, well, maybe Henshaw gets it, but it doesn't go away from Blanda. So there's all sorts of things, all sorts of connotations on that one.
Anyway, we'll take it
Oh yeah.
for sure.
So that win moves us up into second in the league, same points as Ulster.
Yeah.
And it
Joint top, Jason.
Joint
Joint
top,
top.
okay.
Joint
And it pushes Munster down to fifth.
Joint six, Jason. Joint six.
And
So-
it also puts it also I think Cardiff or not Cardiff, Ospreys and Glasgow are also tied a point behind.
It's
far as
beginning
I
to
know.
look a lot like the Pro
Yes,
12.
Yeah, it's
The cream is rising to the top as it usually does.
Yeah.
it's interesting. All right, the league is getting very, and it's nice to leave it for a couple of weeks, looking like that. Let it settle. Let it
Percolating
settle for a while.
Well, Connacht had
Simmer.
a nice win over Ulster. They seem to have rediscovered a bit of form and got their
Yeah.
season back on track after the opening 3 games they lost?
Yeah, Ulster had a bit of trouble with their PP. Is fact really what happened.
I don't know where he's going with this.
They no Pinar and no Piatow.
They had a bit of a problem with their PPP then because they also had Paul.
Yeah, well, I think the two big areas were selection, which I've just covered, and attitude. Like, if they had a better attitude and if they'd selected slightly less cavalierly, they would have had. I mean, like, they don't need to rest Piatow, whatever about
He's injured, wasn't he?
Oh, was he injured?
Yeah,
oh, sorry.
so. But
We were
Pinar-
all allowed
Pinar-
one each, so we were.
Pinar
Yeah.
Pinar was rested though.
Yeah, Pinar was definitely rested.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And a game. I think they were kind of relying, and you could see it mentally in them. They were kind of relying on their dominance over Connacht because, like, Pat Lam has never beaten Ulster anywhere, and they've never lost to Connacht in Ravenhill since in 54 years or something like that. So they have the Indian sign over Connacht, and I think they were kind of letting that do the work for them. I mean, not that they were terrible; they were only 5 points behind.
Game
but
wasn't
they-
in Ravenhill.
No, it wasn't.
They came back at them though, didn't they? Like they kind of caught up with them and they got it back to 22.
Connacht went through them for sure.
And there was a couple of things. There was a couple of things
I watched the game
that seemed
live.
to go wrong. Like Connacht scored a try from a kickoff. There was a knock on. I watched it on BBC Northern Ireland, so
BBC
it was-
Ulster Rugby.
So exactly. So the boys were a little bit biased.
I switched
But-
over at half time for a laugh.
Yeah, it's always good fun. But
Morose.
it did look like there was a little bit of a knock on there for Connacht's try. And then when Jackson decided to go for a kick down the line, instead of making sure he got his touch, he kicked it pretty much dead.
Yeah, yeah.
And they could have had a 5 meter or 7 meter
They
line
really
out.
pulled it out of the fire, but they just looked like I don't think Henderson was 100% for
Well, see,
example.
the thing,
And
the thing is, Henderson
short.
they've two players in their pack. They've a two-man pack. They've Rory Best and they've Henderson, and they have to do everything. They have to write the
to
team
carry.
tune, sing the team tune. They have to do the whole lot in that pack, and Ulster are going nowhere. They're further behind. They're back behind where they were in 2012. There, because at least in 2012 they had the semblance of a competent pack. They
How-
don't now.
How things change. Like a week ago, they were unbeaten.
They are top of the league, Dave.
Yeah. Do you think? But I mean, there's the thing. I mean, that's the first. I mean, big test, and they've lost it. You know.
Yeah.
Cardiff were top of the league at one point, or near enough.
Yeah.
You know, it happens to teams. You know, especially this early in the season. And you look at that Ulster team. You take Pinar out of that team,
they have a
and
chunk-
it becomes a different
But they have
prospect.
5 midfielders injured.
Yeah,
at the
oh, yeah,
moment.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know, you're talking about pretty much
I
your
wouldn't
first
be quite
and
as hard on them, all right, yeah.
but you're pretty much talking about their first and second choice midfield are out at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
The encouraging thing was Tommy Bowe came back and he
Yeah.
he ran a beautiful line to
For the
to
try.
set up
As he
Jared,
does.
Jared Payne.
Yeah.
And okay, Pinar is world class,
Yeah.
and Marshall clearly isn't. So when one is in the team and the
Yeah.
other one isn't, it's a noticeably
But
different
he's
team.
also the man that pulls the strings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so
Pinar.
if he's missing-
I mean, you can have all the brilliant backs in the world. If your scrum half or your half backs can't give them the opportunities, and Marshall just can't do that the way that Pinar does.
No.
But like if Marshall, would you say if Marshall was in our team, like I wouldn't say our half or our scrum halves are particularly world class yet, okay?
No.
Because they're still young kids. Whereas Marshall's been around for quite some time, but his counterpart is a world class player. So the gulf between them is very noticeable. But if you put him into the Munster team, you'd see a big gulf between Murray and him. But if you put him into the Leinster team, you mightn't see.
I genuinely don't think that he would
I
put
don't
much of a
think he-
challenge on McGrath or
No.
Gibson Park. To be honest with you,
I don't think so either.
I mean, what age is he now? Is he 30 yet? He's 29.
29, yeah.
He's been around a very, very long time, and he's never done anything really.
Well, in fairness, a lot of that is to do with the fact that Pinar does so much for that team. Like, you know, take Pinar out and put any other scrum half in there. It's the way they play their game is centred around them.
Oh yeah, no,
It's
that's
not like ours is centred around Johnny. Theirs is centred
yeah,
around
but
him.
Pinar doesn't strike you as a player who closely and jealously guards his secrets when he's not playing.
No.
You can see it. You can see it with Jackson. He's brought him on immensely.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I just think that Marshall is a busted flush, and if Ulster really need to sign it, they have to sign a scrum half. He's going to have to be Irish, so they're going to have to sign someone,
Or maybe a project.
or maybe a project. But they cannot go into next season.
Who's the guy over with Grenoble?
James Hart, he signed
He's
for
actually
Racing.
with Racing.
Racing, sorry.
But he has dirtied his bib in Irish rugby. He made unreasonable contract demands when Leinster were chasing.
Well, one guy who's certainly got a good bit of game time, far more than he would have if he had stayed at Leinster, is Kelleher.
Yeah.
Who,
Although ironically, he might have got a few more games.
well, he might now. Yes, yes, of course. But
Injury
as he
crisis.
was as he was looking at himself in the pecking order at the back three
Oh,
in
yeah,
Leinster,
yeah.
he would have been. He's only a kid, of course, and he would have been fairly well down the order. But he scored his 2 tries on Friday night, and
Yeah.
that's his 3rd try.
He's looking
for,
good.
for Connacht so far this season.
Yeah, well, you know, Eddie Alokan and Healy, who are their 2 starting wingers, are both, well, they're not ex-Leinster necessarily, but they both came from the province of Leinster and learnt the rugby in the province of Leinster.
Very well
Very well put.
So they, you know, Pat Lam has, in one hand, Pat Lam has got a lot out of those guys, and hopefully will out of Cian Kelleher as well. But would Leinster have got as much out of them? They wouldn't, because they just wouldn't have got the game time. For the simple reason they wouldn't have got the amount of game time.
Well, you know, Kelleher would have probably been playing in Donnybrook on Saturday evening.
Who knows? I mean, would he have been behind O'Loughlin?
I don't know.
I'd argue he probably wouldn't. You know, I mean, O'Loughlin on the wing is, you know, the guy's a 13, maybe a 12. You know, he played reasonably well on the wing, but he's not a winger necessarily.
He looked like a very
Yeah.
young 13, maybe a 12, playing on the wing.
He did a bit. I mean, I think he's a find. He's a great player, or he will be a great player, but probably not on the wing. And well, if he does turn out to be a good winger because he has the pace, he's certainly not at this point in his development. So he's on the wing because we've run out of bodies.
Yeah.
You know, So if Keane Keller was still in Leinster, you'd pretty much guarantee he'd be
But
on the wing.
there's the thing. I mean, every other province is getting injuries and signing jokers left, right, and centre. We have lost 3 wingers, back 3 players since June. 2 of them internationals, and we're still not allowed to get a replacement in.
Well, Fergus McFadden
Is
isn't
out for the rest of the year.
is he?
Is out for the rest of the year.
I've heard
Won't be back
conflicting
until
reports. in
January, according to Leo today.
Well, there's him, Carney,
But you know
Dave
what?
Carney. I don't know
I think
about.
we've got kids coming through. Like let's play them. I'd rather see Rory O'Loughlin play, and give him a go. And you know what? If he's not great, I'd rather see.
I say a Toiva play, but anyway, let's go.
Yeah, but don't forget, Lottie Jacuri came, a couple of seasons ago, and
Got
you know,
injured.
well, he got injured, but while he's on the pitch,
Got a lot more than he bargained for.
a 35-year-old or whatever he was at the time, was blocking the development of say Ringrose.
Well, look, I'm not going to say we should be bringing Lottie Takiri over. To be fair, I'm not even saying we should be getting a winger on a medical joker. I think we should be looking at one to replace Ian Kirshner next season, maybe.
No, I'm just wondering why every other province gets an injury and they can
But-
sign jokers and Leinster can't.
Because we've got so much riches. And we're supposed to be the nursery of the IRFU. We're supposed to be developing the.
Jeez, there's me thinking we were just the Leinster branch of the IRFU.
There you go.
Well, the other results of the weekend was what did they call it? The
big weekend. And there was some big games and big
There
results.
was and a lot of derbies, and I like the way they've kind of done that.
Yeah.
One result just stands out is the Ospreys hammering Cardiff 46-24.
Yeah, Cardiff are the coming team.
They are.
Yeah, it looks like they might have suffered from premature ejaculation, John.
Yeah, I'll put that
Zebre
one back in the locker for next season, will I?
Zebre were narrowly beaten by Glasgow away.
Not quite. Glasgow ran up the big score, and then, in fairness to Zebre, and then went to sleep. And Zebre came back at them, but they were never quite able to
And
get
also,
close.
that was their second team.
It was, yeah.
They sent the kids over there
They were,
to.
they were never quite. It was a good result for Zebre getting a bonus point, but they were never likely to win.
No.
And then the other results was Scarlets beat the Dragons and Edinburgh beat Treviso. Like pretty much
Yeah.
went according to plan.
Yeah.
No, I watched extended highlights of the Ospreys Cardiff game, and Ospreys have their mojo back.
They have the mojo back.
So they're back in. They have that old swagger that they used to have. That's back.
But just we got our win against them. Then.
It is,
We
yeah.
did.
But it's good for the league to have Ospreys back. I mean, they are.
But look,
Isn't it amazing that in it only takes 50 years for the word mojo to go from being really cool and something that somebody like James Brown would say to something that a man in his 60s who governs a small island nation of the
the best ever country in the world to do business in.
of Europe uses. Isn't the way funny the way language develops?
But
how
who
the
uses-
phrases go through. Inda
Oh, did he? All
Inda
right.
got his mojo back.
All right. I wasn't aware of that.
There you go.
I was thinking more of the. I thought he was going to go with the 60-year-old men buying a magazine called Mojo or something.
No.
Okay, or
Is there
H&E,
one?
Dave, was it?
Didn't even know there was one.
Oh, there is. Yeah, it's fair. Okay.
Well, anyway, boys, as ever, thanks a million, and please join us in the second half.